Welcome to the next installment in my video lecture series in economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at constant versus increasing opportunity cost. In particular, how these assumptions, the assumption of constant or the assumption of increasing opportunity cost, impacts the shape of the production possibilities frontier. So this table here gives us some data for a hypothetical production possibilities frontier. So for example, if this individual spent all their time brewing, they could make 8 beers and they would have no time available for pizza production, so they would make no pizzas. And at the opposite extreme, if they spent all their time making pizzas, they could make 8 pizzas, but that would leave no time for beer production and the remaining points in between those two extremes. So if we take this data and graph it out, we will have a production possibilities frontier. So there's our first point, 0 pizzas and 8 beers, another point representing 2 pizzas and 6 beers, another point representing 4 pizzas and 4 beers, another point representing 6 pizzas and 2 beers, and the final point representing 8 pizzas and 0 beers. So if we connect all those points together, we get a production possibilities frontier. And in this particular production possibilities frontier exhibits constant opportunity cost. Now, if you take a look at this, you see that this PPF is a straight line. The opportunity cost is the slope of the production possibilities frontier. So this is since this is a straight line, the slope of this line is constant. It does not change dependent upon where you are on the PPF. So this exhibits constant opportunity cost. But let me give you some numeric examples of this to further illustrate. So again, if we start at 0 pizzas and 8 beers and move to a point of we're producing 2 pizzas, how many beers do I have to give up in order to gain those 2 additional pizzas? Well, I have to give up 2 beers in order to gain those 2 pizzas. All right. So let's take a look at if we move from that point, 2 pizzas and 6 beers, to a point where I'm producing 4 pizzas. So I'm moving from that point to that point there. Again, the question is how many beers have to be given up in order to move from 2 pizzas to 4 pizzas? Again, we lose 2 beers in order to gain those 2 pizzas. So again, we move from our point here of producing 4 pizzas and 4 beers, and we decide that we want to produce 6 pizzas. So again, we lose 2 beers and gain 2 pizzas. So in order to gain those 2 pizzas, we have to give up 2 beers. And finally, if we want to move from this point here of producing 6 pizzas to 8 pizzas, we have to give up 2 beers in order to gain those 2 pizzas. So the ratio of beer lost in order to gain pizzas is the same. Every time we want to gain 2 pizzas, we need to give up 2 beers, and that's the same regardless of where we are on the production possibilities frontier. So therefore, it exhibits constant opportunity cost. And this table here just illustrates that and summarizes that information. Every single time we move to a new point on the production possibilities frontier, we gain 2 pizzas, but we lose 2 beers in the process. And that ratio remains unchanged whenever we move from one point to another point on the production possibilities frontier. Another assumption that we can make is increasing opportunity cost. And here is data in this particular table here that illustrates increasing opportunity cost. So this individual, if they spend all their time brewing, can produce 8 beers, and they have no time left for pizza, so they produce 0 pizzas. If they decide they want to produce 2 pizzas, they can only produce 7.6 beers. If they go from producing 2 pizzas to 4 pizzas, they can only produce 6.6 beers. If they decide to produce 6 pizzas, they can only produce 4.5 beers. And finally, when they're spending all of their time producing pizza, they have no time available and they can produce no beer. So we can take this data and plot it out so that we get our production possibilities frontier. So there's our initial point of 0 pizza production and 8 beers. There's the point that represents when we're producing, or this individual is producing 2 pizzas. They are producing 7.6 beers when producing 2 pizzas. They are producing 6.6 beers when producing 4 pizzas, 4.5 beers when producing 6 pizzas. And the final point is 8 pizzas and 0 beers, When we plot that out, we see that we actually have a curve for the production possibilities frontier. That is that the slope of this production possibilities frontier varies depending upon where you are at on the production possibilities frontier. So because of that, this exhibits increasing opportunity cost. Just allow me to give you a couple of numeric examples. So we're going to move from 8 pizzas and 0 pizzas and 8 beers to 2 pizzas. So how many beers have to be given up in order to move production from 0 pizzas to 2 pizzas? We have to give up 0.4 beers in order to increase pizza production by 2 units. Let's continue doing this. So we're going to move from the point where we're producing 2 pizzas and 7.6 beers. If we want to move from that point and increase pizza production to 4 pizzas, how much beer production has to be given up? 1 beer less is produced when we gain 2 pizzas. And we can continue on. We can go from 4 pizzas to 6 pizzas. And how much beer production has to be decreased? It has to be decreased by 2.1 beers in order to gain 2 pizzas. And finally, if we want to move to a position where we're producing nothing but pizza and no beer, we have to give up 4.5 beers in order to increase pizza production by 2 units. So what you can see here is that when we initially increased pizza production by 2 units, it only cost us 0.4 beers. The next incremental increase in pizza production by 2 units now cost 1 beer. The next incremental increase in pizza production of 2 units is now causing us to decrease production of beer by 2.1 units. And the final incremental increase in pizza output by 2 units now costs 4.5 beers. So you can see that the opportunity cost of producing 2 beers increased from 0.4 beers to 1 beer to 2.1 beers to 4.5 beers. So that is a numeric illustration of the increasing opportunity cost that is exhibited. So you can see that here. I put this in another graph. And the way I always explain this to students is horizontally, we're changing production the same amount. This is always equal to 2 here. So this is equal to 2. This is equal to 2. This is equal to 2, and so on. However, you can see the vertical distance that's being given up is increasing every single time. We have a very small decrease here of 0.4. That changes to a decrease in 1 beer here, to a decrease in 2.1, and finally to the decrease in 4.5.